After completing my Jersey Devil review, I realized it might have been a little unfair that I brought up Bugs Bunny Lost in Time and Muppet Monster Adventure without going into detail about either of those two games, so having not visited either of them in a while, I decided to play through them and give them their own reviews. So here we go. First off, it's Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. This game was published by Infogrames in 1999, and interestingly enough, it was developed by Behaviour Interactive, the same company that made Jersey Devil. I find it funny that a generally subpar developer created two of the most memorable experiences of my childhood. It should also then be unsurprising that this group was also behind Monsters Inc. Scream Team, otherwise known as the nostalgia game to end all nostalgia games. Bugs Bunny is a 3D platforming game, less like Super Mario 64 and the Banjo-Kazooie games, which have huge exploration-based levels, and more like the linear platforming challenges offered in games like Gex, Croc, and, Jersey Devil. The basic plot is Bugs sees a time machine that apparently runs on carrot juice fuel, and activates it, causing some sort of rip in the space-time continuum, or something, which can only be fixed by collecting a certain number of clock symbols. Really, the plot only exists because most post-SNES games demanded that plots had to exist. Anyway, the game gives you a quick tutorial level in Nowhere, appropriately named for how utterly nondescript it is. Here you meet Merlin, the developer's catch-all for plot devices. Save your game? Talk to Merlin. Want to know your progress in a level? Merlin tells you. Learn a new special move? Merlin's got it covered. Merlin is Behavior's perfect little box in which they were able to package plot and game progression together. However, the game unknowingly makes several implications that he's evil. I mean, just look at the way he rubs his hands together. Once I came to terms that he wasn't plotting my demise, I just assumed he had endless amounts of hand sanitizer to rub in. Like many 3D platformers of old, there are several hub worlds from which you access themed levels. In this game, the hub worlds are loosely based on time eras. We have the Stone Age, Medieval Period, Pirate Years, since, that really tells us a lot about the time period, the 1930s, and Dimension X. Yeah, they couldn't just call it the future, they just straight up made it a new dimension. My tip is to become very fond of the Medieval Period. That's where you get all the special powers you need to get hidden clock symbols. The levels themselves are all pretty unique and have their individual flavor, even within the same hub worlds. Each era has about 2 or 3 general platforming levels, a boss, and some sort of gimmicky challenge level. These challenge levels can be mine carts, races, car chases, or simple brain tests. Don't even get me started on the brain test level. But in general, the other challenge levels are pretty fun and give you the opportunity to break up some of the platforming action. And unfortunately the game can wear down on you after a while, which is sad since the game only lasts about 7 hours, for 100% no less. It's hard to pinpoint which platforming levels exactly have tedium in them because, truth be told, they all have shades of it. For example, in this last playthrough, I found the most tedious to be in Dimension X and the 1930s. However, I remember the last time I played it before this, I really didn't enjoy the medieval period. For the most part, I guess it depends on how you pace yourself, but I think it's unavoidable to experience some boredom as you go through. And let me get it out of the way to say that I have never enjoyed Dimension X. The platforming is obnoxious, the color scheme is based on pitch black space and red glowing lines, and the brain test level absolutely insults the player's intelligence. With that out of the way, it's time to focus on what is probably the most important thing to consider about the game, whether or not it feels like the cartoon. Well, let's see. The visuals are certainly up to snuff. The game is colorful, proportions are goofy, anvils fall from the sky. Check. The characters are all doing their typical Looney Tunes shtick with goofy voices and fitting music and sound effects. Check. But when push comes to shove, it just doesn't feel like a Looney Tunes game. It just feels like a slightly above average game you rented from Blockbuster back in the day because they were all out of copies of Ape Escape and you didn't want to leave entirely empty-handed. That being said, it is a decent game. It's easy and it goes by quickly, even though it may not feel like it until after you're done and you think to yourself, you mean I haven't been playing that game for 20 hours? Like most games I play, they're old enough and just random enough to the point where you can download them or get them for fairly cheap. So with that consideration in mind, let's assign the points. Starting at a basic score of 5, I'm going to subtract 1 point for the lack of a general Looney Tunes vibe, and 1 more for the tedious nature of some of the platforming levels. I'll add a point for the developer's audacity to make Merlin their be-all end-all plot device, 1 point for changing up the level design so it's not all the same backgrounds, except when they intentionally make a day and night version of the same stage. 1 point for the challenge stages, a half point for nostalgia, despite the fact that it betrayed me a few times during my playthrough, and another half point for creating some clever solutions to puzzles. That leaves it at a 7, which makes it good. I recommend this game. I think it really encompasses a lot of what the PS1 was about on the non-Silent Hill Metal Gear Solid side of things. It's lacking in many areas, and has a tendency to be somewhat clunky with awkward jumps and timing, but the gameplay is mostly solid enough to justify taking a day or two to play it.